My mom thought she could replace my father with her creepy new boyfriend and make me call him dad, but she didn't realize I still had contact with my actual father. I was 13 when my mother got engaged to Brandon. Dad had been convicted of manslaughter just 5 months earlier. The case itself never made sense to me. That night, I had been with Dad at the bar where he worked. He wasn't even drinking, he was just there, doing his job. He went into the bathroom for a few minutes, and when he came back out, his hands were trembling, his shirt stained with blood. His face was pale and panicked. He shouted for someone to call the police. They arrived quickly, but before I even understood what was happening, they were putting him in handcuffs and leading him away like he was some violent criminal. I'll never forget the look in his eyes as he glanced back at me. He kept repeating, "I didn't do this. You have to believe me." And I did. Because Dad wasn't violent, he didn't have a cruel bone in his body. But the way my mom reacted after his conviction made me suspicious. It was as if she had been waiting for it. She brought Brandon home almost immediately, barely giving me time to process what had happened. On day 1, she told me Brandon was my new dad. She said my father was a monster, a killer, and that for my own safety I needed to forget about him. At first, I didn't know what to think. I was grieving, confused, angry. But when just 5 months later she announced that she and Brandon were engaged, everything inside me screamed that something wasn't right. And that's when Brandon started getting comfortable. He began staring at me during dinner, his eyes lingering in a way that made my skin crawl. He'd say things like, "You're growing up so fast. You're going to be such a beautiful young woman." My stomach twisted every time. The worst part? My mom thought it was sweet. She actually smiled when he said those things. I finally gathered the courage to tell her that Brandon creeped me out. That he made me uncomfortable. She laughed it off. She called me dramatic, accused me of trying to ruin her happiness. I should have known then that she wouldn't protect me. Because that night, Brandon proved she must have told him what I said. When everyone was asleep, he came into my room. His shadow loomed over me as he grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave bruises. His voice was a low growl when he said, "You know what happens to naughty girls who snitch." I was terrified. But I stayed quiet. Because I knew I couldn't trust my mom anymore. That's when I started keeping secrets. Not just from Brandon, but from her too. I began writing letters to Dad. I'd hide them in my school books, slipping them out of the house and mailing them from a friend's place after school. Dad couldn't write letters back, but he emailed me through the prison system using an account I secretly set up. Those messages became my lifeline. But things escalated quickly. One Thursday afternoon, I came home from school to discover that Mom had changed my last name on all my school records, to Brandon's last name. She didn't ask. She didn't even tell me beforehand. She just handed me the papers and said, "You'll thank me when you're older." That night, Brandon came into my room again. He sat on the edge of my bed, his hand heavy on my thigh. He whispered that I should feel grateful to have a dad who cares. My whole body shook with disgust. I shoved him off me and locked myself in the bathroom until morning. I wrote to Dad about it. The letter I got back wasn't an email this time, it was a handwritten letter, mailed to my friend's house. Parts of it were smudged, like he'd been crying as he wrote it. Seeing his pain almost broke me. But I clung to hope. His birthday was coming up, and I begged Mom to let me visit him, just for a few minutes, just to say happy birthday. She exploded, calling him a murderer, insisting I'd never see him again. Brandon smirked in the background, waving a pair of car show tickets he'd bought for that exact weekend. Mom announced we'd all be going together instead. When I protested, Brandon slapped me across the face. My mother just stood there and watched. That weekend was a nightmare. We stayed in adjoining hotel rooms. At night, Brandon snuck into mine. He was drunk, and this time he didn't stop at my thigh. His hand went further, his breath sour and heavy. I froze, too terrified to scream. I've never felt so small, so powerless, so utterly broken. When we got home, I thought it couldn't get worse. But it did. Mom found my hidden letters to Dad. She dragged me into the backyard and burned them right in front of me. As punishment, she took the door off my bedroom hinges so Brandon could keep an eye on me. And he did. He would stand in the doorway at night, just watching me. That was my breaking point. At school, I snuck into the library after hours and poured my soul into an email to Dad. I rambled for over an hour, typing everything I'd been through. I didn't even know what I wanted. Maybe just someone to hear me. 2 weeks later, I got a reply. Long, detailed, comforting. But at the end, there was a strange question. "Did you check where I said?" Confused, I reread all his past emails. That's when I saw it. In one of them, He'd told me to look in the attic, behind the radiator. One night when Mom and Brandon went out, I climbed into the attic with a flashlight. My heart raced as I searched. And there it was, a plastic-wrapped journal. My dad's handwriting filled the pages, dated weeks before his arrest. One entry made my blood run cold. It read, "It's been a few weeks since I caught Lauren and Brandon sneaking off together. I don't know how to confront her. Lauren. My mother." Suddenly, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. They were back early. Panic surged through me. Brandon's heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. His head appeared in the attic opening just as I clutched the journal to my chest. I shoved it under my shirt. He climbed up, his broad shoulders blocking the light. His eyes swept the disturbed dust, the moved boxes. He asked what I was doing. My voice shook as I lied, saying I was looking for old toys. He didn't believe me. He yanked me down the ladder, gripping my arm so tightly it hurt. Mom was waiting at the bottom, her arms crossed. Brandon told her I was probably hiding something. I babbled about a teddy bear, desperate to make her believe me. She rolled her eyes and dropped it. That night, I hid the journal inside my pillowcase. Brandon checked on me every hour, his shadow lingering in the doorway. The next morning, I moved it to the bathroom tank, sealed in plastic. At school, I began photographing every page, uploading them to a hidden cloud account. Dad's handwriting detailed months of suspicion, motel receipts in Mom's purse, Brandon lurking at the bar during Dad's shifts, late-night encounters that didn't add up. I knew I couldn't do this alone. That's when I remembered Uncle Henry, Dad's best friend. Mom had cut him off, but I found his number in an old address book. I called him from a pay phone near school. His voice cracked when I told him who it was. We met at the library. I showed him the photos. His face darkened with every page. He swore Dad's conviction had always seemed wrong. He promised to help me. Over the next weeks, we secretly gathered evidence. Witnesses remembered Brandon at the bar the night of the crime. The manager even had backup security footage showing Brandon entering the bathroom before Dad. Minutes later, Dad emerged covered in blood. It was enough to prove Dad's innocence. But Brandon was catching on. He confronted me one night, whispering threats about accidents that could happen to Mom. My blood turned to ice. I told Uncle Henry, and he said it was time, we had to act before Brandon destroyed us both. So we went to Dad's lawyer with everything, the journal, the photos, the witness statements, and finally the footage. The lawyer's hands trembled as he watched. He promised he'd take it to the district attorney immediately. The next week was hell. Brandon was more watchful, more aggressive. But then, finally, everything shifted. Police cars pulled up to our house early one morning. I'll never forget the sight of Brandon being dragged out in handcuffs, his face twisted with rage. Mom screamed, clawing at the officers, but they pushed her back. She wasn't arrested that day, but she didn't get away either. She was named in court as Brandon's accomplice. She'd helped cover for him, lied to investigators, and framed my dad. The trial was long, but the truth came out. Dad's conviction was overturned. Brandon was sentenced to decades in prison. My mother. I haven't spoken to her since. When Dad walked out of prison a free man, I ran into his arms and sobbed like the child I still was. He held me tight, whispering, "I told you I didn't do it. You saved me." And for the first time in years, I finally felt safe again.